Did you hear the clock chiming? It's 3 a.m., everyone. The demon hour is at hand, which means it's time to share some more stories of horror, mystery, and dread. Once more, we'll be playing a new favorite game of mine, Truth, Myth, and Lie. The objective is simple. I'm going to present 3 stories with a unifying theme or idea, and you have to guess which is true, which is a myth, and which is a lie. Bonus points if you guess whether or not I wrote the lie myself. Think you can get a perfect score? Let's find out. Technology is truly awesome. It does more than just make simple chores easier. It connects people, forming bonds between worlds. It can cross the divide between 2 friends in the same city, lovers across nations, or even give an ethereal entity an audience to play with. Sometimes electronic devices can even give the dead a voice in more ways than just producing a bit of color and a tape of white noise. In 2012, a man began reaching out for help when his former girlfriend's Facebook account started acting up. It appeared that someone had broken into her account a year after her death and was using it to taunt him by sending messages. He began receiving sudden notifications that were very simple, with his girlfriend, Emily, just saying hello. She then started to speak about hitting a trail together and something about wheels on the bus, an especially eerie message considering that she had died in a head-on collision. Things took a steep turn for the truly disturbing when Emily's account began tagging herself in pictures of the man sitting alone. It finally became too much for him. The man in question, Nathan, directly messaged Emily's account without her initiating the conversation. "Why are you doing this? Why do you keep tagging her?" he asked. Her response was 4 repetitions of hello followed by a nonsense statement and a copy of Nathan's question. "Why are you doing this?" The account kept pulling up nonsense messages, recycling statements made by Emily long ago in the conversation log. Whatever was using these messages started to focus on a specific phrase, "no chance of passing." It then brought up an inside joke, "ask Nathan," and began repeating his name. Soon, Emily figured out how to create an original phrase, "freezing." Shortly after this, her memorial page began messaging Nathan too, repeating what he had sent to her the day that she died during her time of death. Moments later, a picture and a single word came through, "freezing." What did Nathan have to say about this picture? "That's my door. That's my computer. It's taken from outside. I got the message 3 hours ago but didn't check it until now. Help." Spirit communication sometimes takes form in devices that aren't specifically meant for talking to others, like in this case from 2013. A woman named Ariana Soul had taken in her father after the death of her mother, and he had stayed with his daughter's family for 3 years before passing on as well. During that time, he occupied the same recliner in the living room and watched TV each day, usually switching between just 4 channels. On one of these channels, he made sure to catch every installment of a news personality program. His daughter remembered it as the one and only show he always put in the effort to turn on. 4 months after his death, Ariana became startled by the sound of the TV suddenly coming on in the other room. She walked in expecting her husband or son to be home early from their activities, but found no one except for her father's favorite news personality on the screen. She took a moment to collect herself before turning the television off and carrying on with her day. 2 weeks later, on the following weekday, the television came on again at exactly the same time for precisely the same show, and again, the startled woman considered the TV for a moment before turning it off. Every so often from that point, on any given weekday, the TV would turn itself back on just in time for her father's favorite news program. Ariana tried setting the cable box to a different channel before turning it off herself an hour before the appointed episode time, and continued to do so each day until the phenomenon reoccurred. Even on a different channel, it went back to the same program. It seemed that even in death, her father was maintaining his one bit of steadfast routine. A very popular story is the case of the voice on the telephone that belongs to someone who can no longer speak. And despite the changes through time from rotary phones to landlines to cell phones, it seems this story continues to carry on. In 2008, on September 12, a California commuter train crashed into a freight train, resulting in the death of 25 people and injuring over 100 others. One of the dead was a man named Charles Peck, who was on his way to interview for a job at the airport in Van Nuys. At the time, he was engaged to a woman named Andrea and had 3 children with his ex-wife. During cleanup of the wreckage on the site of the crash, Mr. Peck's family members received numerous calls from his cell phone for hours on end. Picking up resulted in hearing static, while dialing his number back sent callers directly to voicemail. When family members alerted emergency personnel working the site, they used the cell phone signal to track the location of his body and recovered it from the wreckage an hour after the phone stopped making calls. Are you ready to dial in your guesses as to which story is real, fake, and in between? I do hope your heart wasn't set on that Facebook story because it's very much a myth. But it is a myth you can see happening to someone purely by how easy it is to manipulate social media accounts. Originally shared on Reddit's No Sleep Story community, the tale of the dead girlfriend messages is relatively well known, and images help provide evidence to the claim. But images are very easy to manipulate as well with programs, and the ending is too hardcore in its classic scary story approach to be legitimate. However, in the same year this tale started, the UK's Daily Mail and the Huffington Post did share an article about a man who received an email from a dead friend, which had a detail from their memories about time spent hanging out in his attic. The same dead man sent an email to his cousin mentioning how the cousin broke his ankle even though it occurred after the emailer's death. People are spending enough time with technology as a means of direct communication while they're alive that it isn't much of a stretch to say that they might manipulate it again in the afterlife, especially if there have been cases of electronic interruption by spirits since the telephone was invented. But as far as the case of the dead loved one correspondence online goes, we can't be sure of what's real and what's fake. How about that story of the haunted television though? Did you enjoy that one? I sure hope so, because I wrote it myself. Yes, it's a lie, but ask anyone in a room if they've had a very unsettling experience with the electronics turning themselves on, and there is a good chance that someone will step forward. You may have even experienced this sort of thing yourself. Even if you haven't, and you can't find someone else who has, you can at least take stock in knowing that the dead man's cell phone story is true. Yes, this event actually happened, and all those calls were made to family contacts in the phone from the site of the crash. Now, an easy explanation could be made in saying that the same event of pocket dialing was responsible for this, but Charles Peck would have had to land in exactly the right way and have his body constantly moved in order to make all of those calls. Alternatively, the phone could have been smashed just right in order to make all of those calls happen in rapid succession down the list of contacts, but I personally haven't heard of a phone pulling off something like that. Add in the probability that it was an older flip or slide phone, being that the year was 2008, and there's even less of a chance of constant touchscreen pressure causing this to happen. Regardless, this tale is strange, but true, and it brought rescue crews right to the poor man's body. Do you know any stories of technology bridging the gap between this world and the land of the dead? Let me know in the comments. I'd love to find out what you've heard or even know firsthand. Feel free to tell me what your guesses were for any of these stories, and if you enjoyed this round of Truth, Myth, and Lie, go ahead and hit the like button. Be sure to subscribe for more games at 3 a.m. There are plenty more stories to be told, and I can't wait to share them with you. That's all for tonight's festivities. Thanks again for joining me in the dark this evening during the most mystical of hours. I'm Nick Nocturne, and like the man on TV your parents used to watch, I'll be back again real soon. Sleep tight.